Have you ever wondered why Jesus met Moses and Elijah, and not Abraham, David, or any other figure, on the Mount of Transfiguration? This wasn't just a heavenly cameo. It was a divine revelation, rich with symbolism and prophetic meaning. In this video, we reveal the hidden truth behind this extraordinary event. What does it say about Jesus' mission, identity, and the destiny of humanity? Why these two men, and why that mountain? Stay with us as we uncover the powerful spiritual message buried in this moment, one that connects the law, the prophets, and the glory of the Messiah. In the Gospel accounts, one of the most mysterious and awe-inspiring moments in the life of Jesus is the event known as the Transfiguration, described in Matthew 17 verses 1 to 9, Mark 9 verses 2 to 10, and Luke 9 verses 28 to 36. It is a vision so radiant, so profound, that even the closest disciples could barely comprehend what they saw. On a high mountain, Jesus is transfigured before Peter, James, and John, his face shining like the sun, his garments gleaming white, and suddenly Moses and Elijah appear, speaking with him. Why Moses and Elijah? Why this mountain? And why this moment, just before Jesus turns toward Jerusalem and the cross? To answer these questions is to enter the very heart of Scripture, where law, prophecy, and Messiah converge. This is not just an event, it is a revelation. Let us explore why Jesus met Moses and Elijah on the Mount of Transfiguration and what this moment reveals about his identity, his mission, and the story of redemption itself. The symbolism of the mountain. Mountains are more than geography in Scripture. They are symbolic thresholds, where heaven touches earth and where divine revelation is given. Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the law. Elijah fled to Mount Horeb to hear the still, small voice of God. And now Jesus ascends a high mountain to be transfigured. The mountain signifies divine encounter, a space above the distractions of the world, where eternity breaks into time. This setting prepares us for something that goes beyond the natural. The mountain is not named in the Gospels, but early Christian tradition often identifies it as Mount Tabor, while others suggest Mount Hermon. Regardless of geography, the mountaintop is a portal, a place where the veil between dimensions thins, and where past, present, and future converge. Moses and Elijah. Why these two? 1. Moses, the lawgiver. Moses represents the Torah, the divine law, the foundation of the covenant between God and Israel. He is the liberator of the Hebrew people, the mediator of God's commandments, and the one through whom the nation was formed. His presence on the mountain signifies the authority of the law, and how Jesus stands in continuity with, yet also in fulfillment of, that sacred tradition. 2. Elijah, the prophet. Elijah is not only a prophet. He is the prophet who never tasted death, taken up in a whirlwind. 2 Kings 2 verse 11. He symbolizes the prophetic tradition, those who called Israel back to faithfulness, spoke truth to power, and pointed forward to the coming Messiah. According to Malachi 4 verse 5, Elijah was to return before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. His presence underscores the prophetic expectation of the Messiah. Together, Moses and Elijah stand as embodiments of the law and the prophets, the two great pillars of the Hebrew Scriptures. Their appearance affirms that Jesus is the fulfillment of all that came before. He does not abolish the law or the prophets. He completes them. Cf. Matthew 5 verse 17. A conversation across time. In Luke's account, we are told what they discussed. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. Luke 9 verse 31. The Greek word used here is exodos, a deliberate echo of Moses' Exodus, the great liberation from bondage. But now the Exodus is not from Egypt, it is from death itself. Jesus, Moses, and Elijah are conversing about the coming passion, about the cross and the resurrection. This moment is not simply mystical. It is strategic. It is a council of the eternal, a meeting between heaven's emissaries. Moses speaks from the world of covenant and commandment, Elijah from the world of vision and judgment. Jesus stands as the bridge between both and beyond. The radiance of Jesus, not reflected, but revealed. Jesus is transfigured. His face shines, his clothes become dazzling white. This is no mere reflection, as with Moses when he came down from Sinai. This is light from within. His divine nature, usually veiled in human form, is momentarily revealed. This illumination tells the disciples, and us, that Jesus is not just a teacher or prophet. He is the incarnate presence of God, the Logos made flesh. The Transfiguration is a glimpse of his glory, the same glory he shared with the Father before the world began. John 17 verse 5. This moment is not a break in the story. It is the true center. It tells us who Jesus really is, right before he descends into suffering and apparent defeat. The voice from the cloud, divine affirmation. As the disciples tremble in awe, a cloud overshadows them, a classic symbol of divine presence, echoing the cloud on Sinai and the tabernacle. Then a voice speaks, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." Matthew 17 verse 5. This divine voice is almost identical to what was heard at Jesus' baptism, but with one crucial addition. Listen to him. This command sets Jesus above Moses and Elijah. The law and the prophets have spoken, but now the final word has come. Jesus is not just in the lineage of revelation. He is its fulfillment and its culmination. The disciples are being told, gently but firmly, the age of shadows is passing. The true light has arrived. Peter's impulse, building tents. Peter's reaction, let us build 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, may seem clumsy, but it carries deep symbolic meaning. He wants to preserve the moment, perhaps even equate the 3 figures. But before he can finish, the cloud envelopes them, and the voice speaks. When they open their eyes, only Jesus remains. This detail is crucial. The law and the prophets are honored, but they do not remain. Only Jesus stands at the center now. It is a powerful metaphor. The old has prepared the way, but now the new covenant has come in glory. Hidden layers, a meeting beyond time. There is a mystical reading of this moment, too, one that sees the Transfiguration not just as a vision, but as a meeting across time. Moses had once asked to see God's glory and was only allowed a glimpse. Exodus 33 verses 18 to 23. Elijah had fled to the mountain and heard the still, small voice. Now, both behold the glory of God in the face of Jesus. In this sense, the Transfiguration is redemptive not only for the disciples, but for Moses and Elijah themselves. It is the completion of their longing. Just as Jesus redeems the living and the dead, this moment symbolically gathers all of time, past, present, and future, into one divine encounter. The disciples' silence, mystery held in awe. After this dazzling encounter, the disciples are told not to speak of it until after the resurrection. Why? Because it would not make sense until the whole story was revealed. The Transfiguration points forward to the resurrection, not only of Jesus, but of all who belong to him. It is a preview of the glory to come. But before glory comes suffering. The mountaintop must give way to the valley. The cross must come before the crown. The disciples are given this vision not as an escape, but as a strength for the road ahead. What the Transfiguration reveals. Let us now gather the truths unveiled by this moment. Jesus is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Moses and Elijah testify to his identity, pointing to him as the one in whom all things are made whole. Jesus is divine. The light comes not from without, but from within. This is the Son of God, radiating the glory of heaven. Jesus will suffer, but not in defeat. His exodus is not an end, but a passage, through death into life for all who follow. The old covenants are honored, but surpassed. Jesus is the new and living way, the voice to whom we must now listen. Time is transcended. The past meets the present in the presence of eternity. The Transfiguration is not just a glimpse of Jesus' identity. It is a vision of what is to come for the world. The truth revealed, a glorious pattern. In the end, the Transfiguration is not an isolated miracle. It is a pattern of transformation. What happened to Jesus on the mountain is a foretaste of what will happen to all creation. And we all, with unveiled faces, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image. 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18. The glory revealed on the mountaintop is meant for us. The path is through suffering, yes, but the destination is glory. Jesus shows us who He is, so we may discover who we are called to become. The mountain moment. The Transfiguration of Jesus is among the most mysterious and luminous moments in the Gospel narratives. Found in Matthew 17 verses 1 to 9, Mark 9 verses 2 to 10, and Luke 9 verses 28 to 36, it tells of a vision seen not by crowds, but by three chosen disciples, Peter, James, and John. On a high mountain, Jesus is transfigured before them. His face shines like the sun, his garments become dazzling white, and he is joined by Moses and Elijah, speaking with him in glory. A cloud overshadows them, and a voice from heaven declares, "This is my Son, whom I love. Listen to him." This moment has been contemplated by mystics, theologians, and artists for centuries. But beyond its beauty and mystery lies a calling, a shift from vision to vocation. The Transfiguration is not only about who Jesus is, it is about who we are invited to become and how we are called to live. This is a story that draws us into the very heart of transformation, not merely seeing Christ glorified, but being called into His likeness. From the mountaintop of vision, the disciples are sent into the valley of mission. So are we. 1. A vision not hidden. The Transfiguration is a revelation, but not a secret. It is a mystery, but not a puzzle. The Gospel writers record it not as a fantastical tale, but as a pivotal moment of divine self-disclosure. Jesus does not change in essence. Rather, His glory is briefly unveiled, allowing the disciples to see His divine nature more clearly. The brightness of His appearance, the presence of Moses and Elijah, the enveloping cloud, and the voice from heaven are not illusions. They are signs. They point to the truth that Jesus is not merely a teacher or a prophet, but the very embodiment of the divine. He is the fulfillment of the law of Moses and the prophets Elijah. His transfigured appearance is not an escape from reality, but a deeper entry into it. The vision is not given to impress or entertain. It is given to prepare. 2. Seeing with the Spirit. When we read the Transfiguration, we must resist the temptation to interpret it solely through physical sight. What was seen with the eyes, a shining face, white robes, ancient figures, was only the surface. The deeper seeing required is spiritual vision, the ability to perceive the truth of who Jesus is and what His mission means. Spiritual vision is not passive. It requires openness, surrender, and a willingness to be changed. The disciples were terrified, confused, overwhelmed. Their sight outpaced their understanding. And yet, it was only after the resurrection that they could begin to grasp what they had seen. We, too, are invited to see not just the outward glory, but the inward truth. To behold Christ is not only to admire him, but to be drawn toward him, to be changed by what we see. This is why Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18, "And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory." The vision is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. 3. Moses and Elijah, forerunners of the Christ. Why do Moses and Elijah appear? Because they are witnesses. Moses, the lawgiver, symbolizes the covenant obedience and the foundation of Israel's relationship with God. Elijah, the prophet, represents divine warning, expectation, and the call to return to God's path. Their appearance testifies that Jesus is not introducing something new in isolation, but bringing all of Israel's history and hope to fulfillment. But there is more. Moses once ascended Sinai and received the law. Elijah once fled to Horeb and heard the still, small voice of God. Each had a mountain encounter. Now they both appear on another mountaintop, gazing upon the one who is greater than both. Jesus does not reject Moses and Elijah. He transcends them. They come to decrease so that he might increase. And they do not stay. When the vision fades, the disciples see only Jesus. The old has served its purpose. The voice from heaven says it plainly. Listen to him. This is not just a theological shift. It is a vocational one. The disciples are no longer students of the law or servants of prophetic tradition alone. They are now followers of the incarnate Word. For the disciples, from beholding to following. Peter, in his bewilderment, suggests building 3 shelters, one for Jesus, one for Moses, one for Elijah. His impulse is to preserve the glory, to freeze the moment, to make it permanent. But that is not what the moment is for. The cloud interrupts him, and the divine voice speaks. When the cloud lifts, only Jesus remains. This detail is critical. The disciples are not to stay on the mountain. They are to follow Jesus back down into the valley, into the crowds, into the coming suffering. The vision is not an escape. It is empowerment for the journey ahead. The Transfiguration is a moment of calling. It tells the disciples not just who Jesus is, but who they must become: witnesses, disciples, carriers of the light. They are to bear the vision into the darkness. They are to become part of the divine plan. 5. The cloud and the voice, divine affirmation. The cloud that envelopes the mountain recalls the presence of God in the Old Testament. The cloud on Mount Sinai, the cloud that filled the tabernacle and the temple. It is not a fog of confusion, but a symbol of divine nearness. The voice that speaks affirms Jesus as the beloved Son and gives a command. Listen to him. This voice mirrors the baptismal voice of the Father, but adds something new. Not just an affirmation of Jesus' identity, but a call to obedience. The disciples are not spectators. They are participants. They are to listen, not just hear, but obey, follow, become. This moment of divine affirmation is also a moment of vocation. The disciples are being told, in no uncertain terms, that to see Jesus clearly is to respond. The vision demands a choice. The glory requires action. 6. From the mountain to the cross. Immediately after the Transfiguration, Jesus begins to speak more openly about his impending suffering and death. This is no accident. The glory of the mountain is not a detour around the cross. It is the preparation for it. The disciples must learn that the Messiah's path leads not first to a throne, but to a cross. That the vision of glory is tied to the reality of sacrifice. The Transfiguration teaches us that transformation involves suffering. The beauty of the vision does not shield us from pain. It gives us strength to endure it. The light is not a denial of the darkness, but a promise that the darkness will not win. The disciples descend the mountain, bewildered and silent. They do not understand yet, but they will. The glory they have seen will be echoed in the empty tomb, and their vocation will soon become clear. 7. What the Transfiguration means for us. The Transfiguration is not just a story about Jesus. It is a pattern for the Christian life. We, too, are called to the mountain, to behold, to listen, and to be changed. But we are not meant to stay there. Like the disciples, we are called to bring the light of that vision into the world. Vision becomes vocation. To see Christ is to be sent by Him. To behold glory is to be called into mission. The mountain is where we receive the clarity and courage to walk into the valley of everyday life, where the light must shine in the darkness. Just as the disciples were chosen to see the vision and then to carry it to others, we are invited to do the same. Our world, full of confusion, violence, and despair, needs transfigured people, people who have seen the face of Christ and live as signs of His coming kingdom. 8. The transfigured life. The Christian life is meant to be a transfigured life, not just externally, but inwardly. To be a follower of Christ is not to mimic His actions alone, but to share in His transformation. Romans 12 verse 2 urges us, "Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The word for transformed here is metamorpho, the same word used for Jesus in the Transfiguration. What was revealed in Him is meant to be reflected in us. The vision we receive in prayer, in Scripture, in sacrament, in silence, is meant to shape how we speak, act, love, serve. We are called to become light-bearers, image-bearers, reflections of the glory we have seen. Climbing our own mountain. The Transfiguration begins on a mountain, but it ends in the world. It is a hinge between vision and vocation, between seeing and serving. Jesus shows His glory not to distance Himself from us, but to draw us into His mission. Moses and Elijah vanish. Jesus remains. The voice commands us, listen to Him, follow Him. And so we climb, not to escape the world, but to be changed, and then to return, carrying the light with us. The Transfiguration is not just His, it is ours, if we dare to see. To behold the glory of Christ is to be changed forever, and to be changed is to be sent. This is the journey from vision to vocation. What happened on the Mount of Transfiguration wasn't just for the disciples, it was for us. In that radiant moment, Jesus stood between Moses and Elijah, between the law and the prophets, revealing Himself as the fulfillment of both. This wasn't just history, it was a message that heaven speaks, that the past testifies, and that Christ is the bridge. If this video opened your eyes to something deeper, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, some truths aren't just taught, they're revealed. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep climbing your own mountain of revelation. See you in the next one.